2 weeks after the scout ships were destroyed, the main Dominion fleet arrived. Fleet Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the tactical displays with confusion. His species had conquered over 200 worlds, but he had never seen anything like what surrounded the third planet of this solar system. The space around Earth was filled with defensive platforms, armed stations, and thousands of small attack ships. The primitive species that should have been hiding in fear had instead built a war fleet. Zethkar was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. His people, the Dominion, had been conquering other species for over 1,000 years. They were very good at it. Most worlds surrendered when they saw the Dominion fleet. Others fought with primitive weapons and died quickly. But this world was different. The tactical officer reported that the humans had destroyed all 3 scout ships, without losing a single vessel. In 1,000 years of conquest, that had never happened before. "How many ships do they have?" Zethkar asked his tactical officer. "Over 3,000 small attack ships, sir, plus 50 larger vessels that appear to be warships, and dozens of armed space stations." Zethkar studied the numbers. The Dominion fleet had 50 ships, but each one was massive and powerful. They should be able to defeat the human fleet easily. But something bothered him about the way the human ships moved. They did not stay in neat formations like civilized species. They scattered and regrouped like wild animals. On Earth, Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the command center of the space station Defiance. Around her, dozens of officers tracked the movement of both fleets. The main display showed 50 red dots representing Dominion ships and thousands of blue dots representing human vessels. "Admiral, the alien fleet is moving into attack position," reported Commander Tim Baker. "They are staying in close formation." Rebecca nodded. The aliens were fighting like they always fought. They kept their ships together in a tight group, using their superior firepower to crush enemies quickly. It had worked for them for 1,000 years, but they had never fought humans before. "Signal all ships," Rebecca ordered. "Execute battle. Plan Alpha. Scatter formation. Attack from all sides." Captain Alex Turner commanded the human flagship Retribution. It was not as big as the alien ships, but it was fast and carried enough nuclear missiles to destroy a city. Alex had been a submarine commander in the Navy before the alien signal came. He understood how to fight enemies that were bigger and stronger. "All ships, this is Turner," he said over the radio. "Remember your training. We are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to kill them all." The human fleet broke apart like a school of fish. Some ships dove below the plane of battle. Others climbed high above it. The rest spread out in a wide circle around the alien fleet. Zethkar watched this with growing concern. What are they doing? Why do they not maintain formation? His tactical officer checked the sensors again. "Sir, they appear to be surrounding us." "Impossible. We have superior firepower. They should attack us directly." But the humans were not interested in fair fights. Captain Maria Santos led a group of 50 fighters in a high-speed attack on the rear of the alien formation. Her ships fired missiles and immediately turned away before the aliens could return fire. The alien ships tried to turn to face this new threat, but more human ships attacked from the other side. Then from above. Then from below. The Dominion found themselves spinning in space, trying to defend against attacks from every direction. Dr. Ashley Kim had spent months studying human military history for this moment. She had read about every naval battle, every air combat, every ground war that humans had ever fought. Then she had adapted those tactics for space warfare. The key was simple. Humans had been killing each other efficiently for thousands of years. They knew how to fight. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Price led the first boarding action in human history. His Marines used small, fast ships to get close to a damaged alien vessel. Then they cut through the hull and went inside. The aliens inside. The ship had never faced anything like human Marines. Danny's soldiers moved through the corridors with ruthless efficiency. They had trained for this moment by fighting in every type of building and tunnel on Earth. Ship corridors were easy compared to urban warfare. The Marines cleared the alien ship room by room. The Dominion crew tried to fight back, but they were not soldiers. They were conquerors who had never met real resistance. The humans were warriors who had been perfecting the art of killing for thousands of years. Captain Ryan Clark flew his fighter through the battle like he was dancing. He had destroyed 3 alien ships already, and his squadron had not lost a single pilot. The aliens were shooting at empty space while human fighters struck from unexpected angles. "The enemy is breaking formation," reported Sam Jackson over the radio. "Their ships are trying to escape." This was what Rebecca had been waiting for. When an enemy started to run, that was when you destroyed them completely. "All ships, pursue and destroy," she ordered. "Do not let any of them escape." The human fleet chased the fleeing alien ships like wolves hunting deer. The Dominion had superior technology, but the humans had superior tactics and superior fury. Zethkar realized with horror that his fleet was being destroyed. In less than 2 hours, 30 of his 50 ships had been reduced to floating wreckage. The humans fought with a viciousness he had never encountered. "Sir, we must retreat," his tactical officer said. "We cannot win this battle." Zethkar wanted to argue, but the facts were clear. His species had met something they did not understand. A race that enjoyed warfare. "Signal the retreat," he said. "Get the remaining ships out of this system." 20 alien ships escaped into hyperspace, carrying news of their defeat back to Dominion. Space. For the first time in their history, a Dominion conquest fleet had been beaten. On the Bridge of Retribution, Alex Turner watched the last alien ship disappear. Around him, his crew cheered. They had won the first battle, but Alex knew this was just the beginning. "Damage report," he ordered. 18 ships destroyed, 47 damaged but repairable, came the reply. "Enemy losses, 30 ships destroyed, 20 retreated." Rebecca's voice came over the radio from Defiance. "Outstanding work, everyone, but this is not over. Those ships that escaped will tell their leaders what happened here. They will come back with more ships and better plans." Alex nodded. The aliens would return, probably with hundreds of ships instead of 50. But something had changed today. Humanity had proven they could fight and win against superior technology. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy something new, a species that did not surrender when faced with extinction. A species that fought back with intelligence, fury, and the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of warfare. The Dominion had made a mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare, and they had underestimated what humans could do when their survival was at stake. Now the real war would begin. But humanity was no longer afraid. They were angry, and they were ready to take the fight to the enemy. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were the most dangerous species it had ever seen. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Cytherian plasma cannons opened fire. Bright purple beams of superheated energy lanced across space, striking the New Horizons hull with enough power to vaporize a small moon. Admiral Zexitar watched with satisfaction as the beams connected, expecting to see the human ship break apart like a fragile toy. Instead, something impossible happened. The outer layer of the New Horizons hull began to burn away, but underneath was something completely different. As the fake cargo ship exterior melted off like old paint, it revealed sleek dark metal beneath. The ugly, boxy shape was disappearing, replaced by something that made Zexatar's blood run cold. "What is happening?" Velnoth screamed from his sensor station. His 4 eyes were wide with terror as he stared at his readings. "Admiral, the human ship is changing. The energy signatures are climbing beyond anything in our database." Zextar watched in growing horror as the New Horizon completed her transformation. Gone was the slow, clumsy cargo freighter. In its place was a ship that looked like it had been designed by nightmares. The hull was smooth and predatory, covered in angles that seemed to bend light around them. Weapon ports were opening along, her sides like the eyes of some ancient monster waking up. Captain Morrison stood calmly on his bridge as his ship revealed her true nature. Around him, his crew worked with the smooth efficiency of people who had done this many times before. The red emergency lights had been replaced by the blue glow of combat lighting, and every screen now showed tactical information instead of cargo manifests. "Disguise protocol complete," reported Tactical Officer Ben Carter from his station. "All weapon systems are online and ready. Defensive grid is active. Engine output at full military power." "Excellent," Morrison replied. He walked over to his command chair, a piece of equipment that definitely did not belong on a cargo freighter. As he sat down, multiple displays came alive around him, showing every detail of the battle space. "Amy, what are you reading from? The alien fleet?" Lieutenant Rodriguez was no longer the nervous cargo officer she had appeared to be. Her fingers moved across her console with military precision as she analyzed the enemy formation. 12 ships in total, sir, heavy cruiser class by their energy output. Plasma-based weapons and standard deflector shields. They're good, but nothing we haven't seen before." Morrison nodded. The Catherians were clearly advanced, but they were using standard military doctrine. They had arranged their ships in a simple attack formation designed to overwhelm a single target with concentrated firepower. It was effective against most enemies, but humans had stopped using such predictable tactics centuries ago. "Ben, what's our tactical assessment?" Carter studied his screens for a moment before responding. "Enemy ships are well armed but slow to maneuver. Their formation is tight, which means they're vulnerable to area effect weapons. I recommend we demonstrate why attacking human ships is a bad idea." "Do it," Morrison ordered, "but leave their command ship intact. I want to have a conversation with their admiral." The New Horizons transformation was more than just cosmetic. Her engines, which had been running at barely 10% capacity, suddenly roared to life with the power of a small star. The ship, that had been drifting helplessly through space, suddenly accelerated forward with enough force to crush an unprepared crew. But Morrison's crew was far from unprepared. They had trained for this moment for years. Every human merchant vessel carried military-grade equipment and a crew that could use it. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity had learned long ago that the best way to avoid fights was to be so dangerous that nobody wanted to start one. "Weapons free," Morrison announced. "Fire Control Officer Lisa Yang, you are authorized to engage." Yang's voice came over the ship's communication system, calm and professional. "Roger that, Captain. Initiating engagement protocol Delta 7. All gun crews prepare for rapid fire." The New Horizons weapons revealed themselves with devastating effect. What had appeared to be cargo bays opened to reveal missile launchers loaded with projectiles that moved at a significant fraction of light speed. Energy cannons emerged from hidden compartments, their barrels glowing with barely contained power. Point defense systems activated along the ship's hull, creating a network of protection that could track and destroy incoming threats with inhuman precision. Admiral Zexatar watched in disbelief as the human ship opened fire. But this was not the clumsy barrage he expected from a primitive species. Each shot was perfectly aimed, perfectly timed, and perfectly coordinated with every other weapon on the ship. The humans were not just throwing firepower at their enemies. They were conducting a symphony of destruction. The first Cytherian ship to die was the cruiser Velshara. Human missiles struck her shields in a pattern that seemed random until the final impact. Each previous hit had weakened the shields at exactly the right point, allowing the last missile to punch through and detonate inside the ship's reactor core. The explosion lit up space like a new star being born. "Impossible," Zextar whispered. "How did they know exactly where to hit?" His answer came from Velnoth, whose voice was shaking with fear. "Admiral, the human weapons are learning. Each shot is analyzing our defensive systems and adapting. They know where our weak points are before we do." 2 more Cytherian ships died in the next 30 seconds. The cruiser Nethkala simply vanished as human energy weapons cut through her hull like it was made of paper. The destroyer killed Thara, tried to retreat, but ran straight into a spread of missiles that had been fired minutes earlier, their course calculated to intercept the ship no matter which direction it tried to flee. Morrison watched the battle unfold on his tactical display, with professional satisfaction. This was why humanity had survived and thrived among the stars. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they were the smartest. Human weapons did not just destroy enemies, they studied them, learned from them, and adapted to beat them more efficiently. "Amy, open a channel to the Cytherian flagship," Morrison ordered. "I think it's time we had a proper conversation with Admiral Zextar." The alien commander's face appeared on the main screen, but he looked very different now. Gone was the arrogant predator who had threatened them minutes before. In his place was a creature who was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. "Admiral," Morrison said politely, as if they were discussing the weather instead of a battle that was destroying the Cytherian fleet. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Federation Dreadnought New Horizon. I believe we need to discuss your immediate surrender." Admiral Zextar was about to answer Captain Morrison's ultimatum when his sensor officer Velnoth let out a sound that could only be described as pure terror. The alien's 4 eyes were locked on his display screen, and his entire body was shaking. "Admiral," Velnoth whispered, "we have new contacts dropping out of hyperspace, multiple human vessels approaching from all directions." Zextar spun around to look at the main tactical display, and what he saw there made his blood turn to ice. The ambush had become a trap, and he was the one caught in it. Human ships were appearing everywhere, emerging from hyperspace jumps with perfect timing and coordination. First came the destroyer Vengeance, a sleek predator of a ship that moved like a hunting shark. Her captain, Kelly Davis, opened a communication channel to the New Horizon as her vessel took position to block any Cytherian escape routes. "New Horizon, this is Captain Davis aboard the Vengeance." Her voice was crisp and professional. "We have the remaining enemy cruisers surrounded. All escape routes are now blocked. Recommend we proceed with standard capture protocols." "Roger that, Vengeance," Morrison replied calmly. "Maintain position and prepare boarding parties. We want prisoners for questioning." More human ships continued to arrive. The heavy cruiser Intrepid appeared next, her massive bulk bristling with enough weapons to level a city. Behind her came the fast attack ships Thunder and Lightning, moving in perfect formation like dancers performing a deadly ballet. But the ship that made Admiral Zextar lose all hope was the last one to arrive. The human battleship Defiance materialized, directly in front of his flagship, appearing from what had seemed like empty space. Her cloaking field shimmered and disappeared, revealing a ship so large it blocked out the stars behind it. Captain Marcus Johnson's face appeared on the communication screen, and Zextar immediately understood that this human was different from the others. Johnson looked like he had been carved from granite, with scars across his face that spoke of battles fought and won. His eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had never lost a fight. "Admiral," Johnson's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am Captain Marcus Johnson of the Human Federation battleship Defiance. You are now completely surrounded. Any attempt to flee will result in your immediate destruction." Zextar looked around at his tactical display and saw that the humans had positioned their ships with perfect precision. Every possible escape route was blocked. His remaining 4 ships were trapped in a sphere of human vessels, each one more advanced and deadly than anything in the Catherian military. "How?" Zextar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How did you know we would be here?" Morrison's face appeared on the screen alongside Johnson's. "Admiral, did you really think we would send our ships through dangerous space without proper protection? Every human merchant vessel has a military escort. You just never see them unless you're foolish enough to attack." The truth hit Zextar like a physical blow. The humans had not been caught off guard at all. They had known about the ambush from the beginning. The New Horizon had been bait, and he had taken it completely. Lieutenant Commander Chris Martinez's fighter squadrons were now returning to their carriers, but they were not alone. More human fighters were launching from the newly arrived ships, filling space with hundreds of small, deadly craft. Each fighter moved with the same impossible grace that had destroyed half his fleet. "This is impossible," Zextar muttered. "Our intelligence said humans were weak, that they avoided conflict." Captain Davis's voice cut through his confusion. "Admiral, you made the same mistake that every aggressive species makes when they first encounter humanity. You confused our desire for peace with an inability to fight. Nothing could be further from the truth." The human ships began moving in, a coordinated pattern that demonstrated tactical thinking far beyond anything the Catherians had imagined. They were not just superior in technology, they were superior in strategy, coordination, and battlefield awareness. Commander Ryan Brooks, speaking from his position aboard the New Horizon, explained the situation with the patience of a teacher, addressing a slow student. "Every human ship is connected to our tactical network. We share information instantly across the entire fleet. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us." Zextar watched as his remaining ships tried desperately to find some way to escape or fight back. The cruiser Velkatha attempted to break through the human formation, but her path was blocked by 3 human destroyers that moved to intercept her with perfect timing. The destroyer Nexavala tried to power up her weapons for one final attack, but human fighters swarmed around her like insects, targeting her weapon systems with surgical precision. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, "Captain Thexanara of the Velkata is requesting permission to surrender. He says his ship is completely disabled and his crew is asking to be taken prisoner rather than die in a hopeless fight." More requests for surrender came flooding in as the remaining Catherian captains realized the futility of their situation. These were experienced military officers who knew when a battle was lost. They had families to return to and crews to protect, and continuing to fight would only result in unnecessary death. Captain Johnson's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Admiral Zextar, your fleet is finished. Your weapons are offline, your escape routes are blocked, and your crews are asking to surrender. You have 30 seconds to order your ships to power down before we take more direct action. Colonel Sandra Lopez, commander of the human Marines aboard the New Horizon, was already preparing her boarding teams. Her voice came over the communication system as she briefed her troops. Remember, we want prisoners, not casualties. These aliens made a mistake, but they're not evil. Treat them with the respect due to fellow warriors who fought bravely against impossible odds. Zextar looked around his bridge at his crew. These were good soldiers who had followed him into what they thought would be an easy victory. Now, they were trapped and facing capture or death, all because he had believed intelligence reports that painted humans as weak and cowardly. The Catherian admiral finally understood that his species had completely misjudged humanity. These were not the primitive, peace-loving creatures his spies had described. These were apex predators who had simply chosen to hide their claws until someone was foolish enough to threaten them. All ships, Zextar said quietly, his voice heavy. With defeat, power down weapons and prepare to be boarded. The battle is over. Dr. Amanda Brooks rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. She had been working at the radio telescope station for 18 hours straight. The numbers on her screen made no sense. For 3 days now, a strange signal had been coming from deep space. It was not random noise like most signals they received. This one was different. It had patterns. It had purpose. Amanda walked across the control room to get more coffee. Her team of scientists was also working without sleep. Everyone knew this signal was special. Dr. Kevin Walsh, her assistant, was printing out pages of data. The papers covered 3 tables already. Amanda, you need to see this, Kevin said. His voice was shaking. I ran the signal through our new computer program, the one that looks for mathematical patterns. Amanda set down her coffee cup and looked at Kevin's computer. The screen showed rows of numbers. But these numbers were not random. They were prime numbers. Then came the Fibonacci sequence. After that came pi to 100 decimal places. This is not natural, Amanda whispered. No star or planet can make signals like this. Someone is sending us a message. At that moment, the phone rang. It was General Patricia Kane from the Pentagon. Her voice was calm, but serious. Dr. Brooks, I need you and your team to stop all other work. Focus only on this signal. We are sending military experts to help you. This is now a matter of national security. Amanda felt her heart beating faster. In all her years of searching for signals from space, she had never heard the military talk like this. Something big was happening. 2 hours later, 3 black cars arrived at the telescope station. Lieutenant Colonel Jake Martinez stepped out of the first car. Behind him came a team of code breakers and computer experts from the military. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had spent 20 years in the Air Force working on secret projects. When he spoke, everyone listened. Dr. Brooks, we have been tracking this signal since it started. Our computers have been working day and night to decode it. What we found will change everything. Jake opened his laptop and showed Amanda a document. The words on the screen made her feel cold inside. We have translated part of the message. It comes from a species called the Kethvar. They lived on a planet 40, light years from Earth, but they are all dead now. Amanda read the translated message on the screen. The words were simple but terrifying. To any who receive this signal, we are the Kethvar. Our world is dying. Our people are gone. We send this message as a warning. The Dominion comes. They harvest all intelligent life. They take worlds and leave nothing behind. We fought them for 50 years. We lost. They are moving toward your section of the galaxy. Prepare. Fight. Do not let our deaths be meaningless." Amanda sat down heavily in her chair. "How far away are they?" Jake looked at his notes. "The signal took 4 years to reach us. But the message talks about the Dominion moving this way after they finished with the HFY world. Our best guess is that they will arrive here in 6 to 8 months. Dr. Kevin Walsh spoke up from across the room. "What is the Dominion? What do they want?" Jake clicked to another page on his laptop. "The HFY message includes data about the Dominion. They are an old species, very advanced. They travel from star to star looking for intelligent life. When they find it, they destroy it and take the planet's resources." "How many worlds have they taken?" Amanda asked. "According to the HFY data, at least 200 worlds over the past 1,000 years. They are very good at what they do. No species has ever stopped them." Amanda felt sick. She thought about her daughter Lisa, who was only 12 years old. She thought about all the children on Earth who had no idea what was coming. "What can we do?" she asked. "We barely have space stations. We have never fought a war in space." Jake closed his laptop and looked directly at Amanda. "That is what we need to figure out. The president is calling an emergency meeting with leaders from every country. We have 6 months to prepare for the biggest threat humanity has ever faced." The next few hours passed like a strange dream. Scientists and military officers filled the telescope station. Everyone was reading the HFY message and trying to understand what it meant for Earth. Dr. Susan Lee, a weapons expert from the Navy, was studying the technical data the HFY had included. "They sent us information about Dominion ships and weapons. It is like they wanted to help us fight back." Amanda looked at the star charts the HFY had transmitted. Red dots showed where the Dominion had destroyed other worlds. Each red dot had been home to millions or billions of intelligent beings. Now they were all gone. Why did the HFY warn us? Amanda wondered out loud. They were dying. Why spend their last energy to help strangers? Jake thought about this for a moment. Maybe they hoped someone would succeed where they failed. Maybe they wanted their deaths to mean something. As the sun set outside the telescope station, Amanda stood by the window looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien ships were traveling toward Earth. Ships full of creatures that had killed entire civilizations. But as she watched the stars, Amanda felt something unexpected, not just fear, but anger. The Dominion thought they could come to Earth and destroy humanity like they had destroyed so many others. They thought humans would be easy victims. They were wrong. Amanda had studied human history. She knew about the wars humans had fought. She knew about the cities that had been bombed and rebuilt. She knew about the armies that had crossed impossible terrain to win battles that could not be won. Humans were not like other species. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had learned to survive when survival seemed impossible. They had learned to fight when fighting seemed hopeless. The Dominion had made a mistake. They had given humanity 6 months to prepare, 6 months for the most warlike species in the galaxy to get ready for battle. Amanda smiled for the first time in 3 days. The aliens were coming to harvest humanity. But they had never faced anything like humans before. They had never fought a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The signal from the HFY had been meant as a warning, but it had become something else. It had become humanity's call to arms. Amanda went back to her computer and began working again. But now she was not just studying the alien signal. She was helping to plan for war, a war that would decide if humanity lived or died. Outside, the stars continued to shine. But now Amanda knew that some of those stars had once lit worlds full of life, worlds that the Dominion had destroyed. Soon, the Dominion would learn that Earth was different. They would learn that humans were different. They would learn why humanity had survived every challenge in their history. They would learn that some species fight back. The boarding of the Catherian flagship happened with the smooth efficiency that Admiral Zextar was beginning to recognize as typically human. Colonel Sandra Lopez led the Marine team that secured his ship, and she did it without firing a single shot. Her soldiers moved through the corridors like they had been born for this kind of work, disarming resistance before it could even begin. Zextar sat in his command chair, watching as human Marines took control of his bridge. These were not the brutal conquerors he might have expected. Instead, they treated his crew with professional respect, providing medical attention to the wounded and ensuring that prisoners were handled according to what they called the Human Military Code of Conduct. "Admiral," Colonel Lopez said as she approached his position, "you and your crew are now prisoners of the Human Federation. You will be treated fairly and according to galactic law. Your wounded will receive medical care, and your ships will be escorted back to your territory." Zextar looked at this human female who commanded such obvious respect from her soldiers. She was smaller than any of his warriors, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her ability to win. "Why?" he asked. "Why show mercy to enemies who would have shown you none?" Lopez considered the question for a moment before answering. "Because that is what separates us from species like yours, Admiral. We fight when we must, but we do not enjoy causing unnecessary suffering. You made a mistake, but that does not make you evil." Captain Morrison arrived on the Catherian bridge a few minutes later, accompanied by his senior officers. He looked around at the alien technology with professional interest, clearly impressed by the advanced engineering, even as he noted its tactical weaknesses. "Admiral Zextar," Morrison said formally, "I am here to deliver a message that you will carry back to your government. This message will determine whether our species go to war or find a way to coexist peacefully." Zextar straightened in his chair, recognizing the importance of this moment. "I am listening, Captain." Morrison walked to the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back in a gesture that somehow made him seem larger and more imposing. "Your intelligence about humanity is completely wrong. We are not a weak species that avoids conflict. We are a species that learned long ago that the best way to avoid war is to be so dangerous that nobody wants to start one." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had accompanied Morrison to the alien bridge, added her own perspective. "Every human merchant ship carries military-grade weapons and defenses. Every human civilian has basic military training. Every human colony can become a fortress within hours if threatened. We learned these lessons the hard way, over centuries of conflict." Morrison continued his explanation, his voice carrying the weight of history. "We do not seek war, Admiral, but we are very, very good at it. What you experienced today was just a small demonstration of human military capability. Our real warships are far more dangerous than anything you have seen." Chief Engineer Pete Sullivan, who had come along to examine the alien technology, looked up from a console he had been studying. "Your ships are well built, Admiral, but they follow predictable patterns. Human military doctrine abandoned predictable patterns long ago. We fight in ways that other species cannot anticipate or counter. Zextar felt a chill run through his body as he began to understand the true scope of what his species had almost unleashed. You mean this was not your full military response? Captain Johnson's voice came over the communication system from the Defiance. Admiral, what you faced today was a single disguised merchant vessel and a few escort ships. If your attack had succeeded, if you had actually harmed human civilians, you would have faced the full might of the Human Federation Navy. That is a force that has never been defeated and has never retreated from a fight. The implications of this statement were staggering. Zextar had brought his best ships and his most experienced crews to attack what he thought was a helpless cargo vessel. Instead, he had walked into a trap that demonstrated human military superiority so completely that resistance was impossible. Tactical Officer Ben Carter stepped forward with a datapad in his hands. Admiral, we have prepared a complete record of this engagement. Video recordings, sensor data, tactical analysis, everything. You will take this information back to your leaders so they can understand exactly what happened here. Morrison walked over to stand directly in front of Zextar's chair. Your species will be escorted back to your territory with a simple message for your government. Humanity does not seek conquest or domination. We want to trade, explore, and learn. But any further attacks on human vessels will be met with the full response of our military. Colonel Lopez added her own warning, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had seen too much combat. Admiral, we know that your species values strength above all else. Consider this. If we can defeat your best fleet this easily, what do you think we could do to your homeworlds if we chose to do so? The thought was terrifying. Zextar had seen how human weapons adapted and learned, how their ships moved with impossible coordination, how their fighters flew patterns that defied the laws of physics. If this was what they could do with a few escort vessels, their full military must be capable of destruction beyond imagination. What happens now? Zextar asked, his voice hollow with defeat. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Now you go home, Admiral. You tell your leaders what you learned here. You explain that humanity is not weak, we are not defenseless, and attacking our ships is not simple. It is suicide. If your government is wise, they will choose to open diplomatic relations instead of planning more attacks. As the human Marines prepared to transfer the Catherian prisoners to holding areas aboard their own ships, Zextar found himself thinking about the future. His species had always believed that strength came from the ability to destroy enemies. But the humans had demonstrated something far more dangerous: the wisdom to use overwhelming strength only when necessary. Captain Morrison delivered his final words as he prepared to leave the alien bridge. Admiral, your species can choose to be our enemies or our trading partners. That choice is yours to make. But understand this: if you choose to be our enemies, you will lose. Every time. Without exception. The human fleet began its journey back to Catherian space, escorting the defeated aliens like shepherds guiding lost sheep. As they traveled, word of the encounter spread throughout the galaxy. The message was simple and clear. Humanity was not the weak, peaceful species that many had believed them to be. They were apex predators who had chosen to wear the mask of merchants and diplomats. But when that mask came off, they revealed themselves to be the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. The Catherians had learned this lesson at the cost of most of their fleet. Other species would be wise to learn from their example.